Okay, this is Thomas Freed on the Liberty Works Radio Network, and this is the Truth Attack Hour. And yes, that's right, folks. We're back with the Truth Attack. So, we got a lot we want to get into this week. Let's just go ahead and get right into the show here. We are the Liberty Works Radio Network, and we do need the support of the members of the listening audience to keep the network operating and the broadcast coming. So if you enjoy the show, the information, the lectures, the topics, the guests on the other shows, we sure would appreciate it if you could find your way over to the LibertyWorksRadioNetwork.com website. If you're not there now already, listening to the radio on the online link, we sure would appreciate it if you could find your way over to the website, get signed up as a monthly subscribing member, even if it's as little as $10, $20 a month. Every membership helps, and we do need support of the listening audience to keep the broadcast coming and the network operating. So, and if you want to get fully informed on how the federal income tax fraud has been completely exposed as a totally fraudulent operation since the end of World War II, you need to find your way over to the IRSZoom.com website and pick yourself up a copy of The Simple Truth About Income Tax, version 2.0. It's just a $6 download of a 100-page PDF that proves you have no liability for income tax, no duty to file a tax return, no gross income under Section 61, no legal responsibility to pay tax on any of your earnings derived from activities within the 50 states exclusively, and it exposes the fact that the federal courts have been lying to the American people. They lack subject matter jurisdiction to enforce tax claims under the 16th Amendment, which they've been doing for 60 years fraudulently because they can't show Congress was authorized by an enabling enforcement clause in the amendment. They can't show that Congress was authorized to write any new law to enforce any alleged new power created by the amendment. The whole 60-year enforcement has been one great, big, huge judicial fraud. Judicial fraud supporting the extortion of the IRS, extorting the wages of the American people, stealing the fruits of their labor to compel them to service the $36 trillion and growing debt of Congress owed to the Federal Reserve Bank. Not one penny of the money taken from your paycheck all year long, and not one penny of the money sent in with the Form 1040 on April 15th. Not one penny goes in the Treasury as required by law. Under 7806, 7809, 7806 requires, 7809 requires deposit of collected tax into the Treasury. So how come on January 10th there's not 1 cent of recorded credit of tax paid in your name after taking money out of your paycheck all year long? Because it wasn't taxed. There's no tax imposed. After 1945, after 1944, the expiration of the victory tax, there's no tax imposed on wages and salaries of the American people. Only on the wages and salaries of non-resident aliens. That's Code Section Title 26, Section 1441B. You don't believe me? Go look it up. Salaries and wages of non-resident aliens are taxed, but they're not taxed in Section 61. And that's just the beginning of learning the truth about our history, because the new tax law passed by Congress and signed by Donald Trump in December of 2017, legally effective as of January 2018, declares that the constitutional foundation for the federal personal income tax is not the 16th Amendment at all. It's Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1. Which authorizes taxation by impost, duty, and excise, where impost taxes foreign activity and foreign persons, duty, like non-resident aliens, duties tax exported goods, when we don't have any duties. That's why we have duty-free shops. If you're leaving the country, you can buy American goods tax-free, and excises tax the manufacture, consumption, and sale of commodities within the country, things like alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. licenses to pursue certain occupations, like selling alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, and it taxes the corporate privilege. So between imposts taxing foreign persons and foreign activity, duties taxing exported goods, excises taxing commodities, licenses, and corporations, where's the authority to tax labor? Under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1. It doesn't exist. That's why they've had to lie to you, all of America, since the end of World War II, telling you it's the 16th Amendment that authorizes the tax, despite the fact that no law is authorized to be written under that authority. But they've admitted Article 1, Section 8 doesn't get to labor, only foreigners, exports, commodities, and corporations. That's why they've had to argue it's the 16th Amendment. That's why the judges have had to lie to you. Now, you tell me why no attorney in the country is smart enough or educated enough to ask the judge where the enabling enforcement clause is that lets Congress write law for any power under the 16th Amendment allegedly created. This is basic fundamental law, people. Year one, day one, class one at law school, subject matter jurisdiction. Power granted by the Constitution, power given to Congress to write law by the Constitution, and Congress has to have written the law. If any one of the three elements is missing, the three-legged stool called subject matter jurisdiction topples over, and the plaintiff can't step onto the stool to have standing before the court. You must be able to assemble, to show, to establish subject matter jurisdiction, to establish the three-legged stool, the platform that gives you standing before the court. The court's authority to enforce the claim, which Congress has to be authorized by the Constitution to write law to enforce. Of course, that authority exists for Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1. It's the original, necessary, and proper enabling enforcement clause of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18. All the other amendments where new authorities are created, new powers are created, they have their own enabling enforcement clause. The 13th, the 14th, the 15th, the 18th, the 19th, the 23rd, the 25th, the 26th, everywhere else, both before and after the 16th Amendment, where new powers are created, the amendment has its own enabling enforcement clause. The 16th Amendment does not. And that means no new law is authorized, and that's why the Supreme Court originally ruled that no new powers are created. How can any new power be created when none is made enforceable? And no new subjects are created, and citizens, American citizens, weren't the subject of federal taxation before the 16th Amendment. They weren't the subject of federal taxation after the 16th Amendment. They didn't become the subjects of federal taxation until the victory tax in 1942. And when it expired 2 years later in 1944, Congress looked around and must have collectively said, holy smokes, nobody sued. Nobody sued. Everybody bought into the patriotic duty to sacrifice, to defeat the Nazis in the European theater and the Imperial Japanese in the Pacific theater. Nobody sued. They all kicked in, and we paid off the debt in 2 years. Holy smokes. Now, I'm sure when they passed that law, they thought it was unconstitutional and somebody would challenge it, because you never before had the labors of the American people taxed directly, not even in war efforts. But the bonds, the war bonds, weren't selling, and they needed to raise money to fund the war. So they passed the victory tax, attached themselves to the salaries and wages of all Americans working everywhere to support the war effort, because if you remember, the government co-opted nearly everything to produce munitions and support for the war effort in Europe to begin, and then, of course, for American military servicemen to fight both in Europe and the Pacific. So it wasn't until World War II that your wages were taxed, and after World War II, the victory tax expired. It was a 2-year war revenue measure, and they couldn't reenact another war revenue measure in 1945 because the war was about to end. They were in Germany moving on Berlin, and the Russians were in Germany moving on Berlin from the other side. It was clear it was going to be over soon, and they would never get through another 2-year war revenue measures. The war was going to be over in 4 months. So the victory tax expired, and Congress was left without any way to raise revenue when they'd become quite accustomed to this attachment to the salaries and wages, the collective labor force of the American people. And so they passed Subtitle C tax law. If you remember, Subtitle A was the body of law passed in 1913. It's the original chapters 1 through 6 of Title 26. It's the original body of code contained in the original Underwood-Simmons Tariff Act of October 3, 1913, requiring the collection of the tax from foreign persons, and only foreign persons. That's done by withholding agents defined in law, Section 7701A16, which reference Sections 1441, non-resident aliens, 1442, foreign corporations, 1443, foreign tax-exempt organizations, as being subject to the collection of the tax at the source by withholding tax from payments. And 1461 says the withholding agent is liable for the payment of the taxes collected. There is no direct taxation of the labor worker, not even of the foreigners. The Supreme Court lays out collection of the tax at the source. The name of the chapter at 24 in Subtitle C is collection of the tax at the source. The name of the statute, 3402, is collection of the income tax. It's all about collection and liability of the collector. It's not about a direct liability in the name of the worker. And the new tax law signed by Donald Trump proves its impost duty and excise activities that are where income derived from those taxable activities are the subject of the tax. It's got nothing to do with the labors of the American people, which are not subject to any impost duty or excise and never have been, because it was never a direct tax under the 16th Amendment. That's the fraud that's been perpetrated on the American people by the IRS, the DOJ, and the judges in the federal courts, all the way to the Supreme Court. It should have corrected this long ago. Because this is where the class warfare, the division of America, the internal conflict, ripping the country apart, this is where it begins. And this is where it all ends. Is the elimination of the class legislation of the income tax is the only way to reunify the country and provide for a system, a restoration of the system of unified representation, rather than this divisive class warfare, which has every politician picking one class or the other and never being able to represent all of America. That's kind of why Donald Trump has succeeded. He's rejected the far left extremes of the radical progressive socialists, and he's also rejected the far right extremes and created more of a populist movement than a conservative movement, because right now populism is conservative. We want strong economy, low energy prices, economic opportunity, law and order, and safety on our streets, and opportunity in our schools and the job markets. That's not extreme. That's straight middle of the road, and that's 70% of America. Why 40% of the country thinks they're socialists? Because they hate Donald Trump so much they're willing to cut their own heads off. Talk about stupidity. Talk about stupidity. Oh, look at this. Here we are. We've chewed up the whole first segment. We haven't even gotten started on the news yet. Well, we'll get into that. So, where's Waldo? Where's Waldo? Hiding Biden, the missing in action non-president. Oh, I'll tell you where he is. He's hiding his head in the sand like a coward. Or an ostrich. He's hanging out at the beach, eating the sandwiches there because his dementia doesn't make it possible for him to tell the difference between food and sand anymore. So he just hangs out and sleeps on the beach all day long. Now there's a president you can put your faith in. Hiding Biden, the dementia fool who won't talk. And Kamala's no better, is she? Not one bit. Not one bit. I understand tonight they're supposed to release the first video of her in an interview. And, I hear the commercial break coming up, so I'll get back to this when we come back. This is Thomas Freed on the Liberty Works Radio Network. Get signed up. We'll be back in 5. This is Thomas Freed on the Liberty Works Radio Network. This is a Truth Attack Hour, and let's just get back into it. Freedom comes from God, not the government. The truth shall make you free, for God's true plan for mankind is freedom, achieved through faith in God. And God alone. If you misplace your faith in any other entity, whether it be man, institution, philosophy, government, or country, your faith will be used against you to betray you and enslave you to that other entity. And that's the history of the government of mankind. Trust us. Don't worry about God or the Spirit or your, just trust us. We'll take care of you. Yeah. Right. Check. The only entity that takes care of you is God. The government uses you to its own advantage. That's why we have a system of class warfare rather than unified representation. Oh, and I guess I should mention that if you want to get informed on all of that information I laid out in the first segment of the show, you should find your way over to irszoom.com and pick yourself up a copy of The Simple Truth About Income Tax version 2.0. It's a 100-page PDF download. You can take receipt of the book right there and have the documents and the information you need to teach, open your own eyes, open your own mind to the truth, and help restore America to the level of freedom that we are supposed to enjoy instead of this system of virtual peonage and rule by the government rather than representation. And that takes us to Kamala, who, like Joe, is a complete and total coward. Total coward. Afraid of questions, afraid of reporters, afraid of issues, afraid of policy decisions. It's 40 days as the candidate. She still hasn't said what her policies are. She keeps sending out aides to deny that what she used to say is her policy still is her policy. And of course that means we've never heard from her what is or isn't true. So when she's in office, she can do whatever she wants and say, you never heard it from me. It's as dirty as it gets, as corrupt as it gets. She's just a giggler. Everything is funny. Everywhere she goes. It's disgusting. How come nobody can ask her any questions? The media should be ashamed of herself and of themselves. Every single network, except for that kid Peter Ducey, is the only one out there trying to get them to talk. Everybody else, even those given access, are asking stupid questions the same way that the only thing they asked Joe was what flavor ice cream did he like in his cone. He never told them high inflation and high prices is what I like in an ice cream cone. $10 a scoop sounds right. No, they never got around to that. The media should be ashamed. Should be ashamed. They're not even demanding she sit for the interview live. It's going to be taped. You know what that means? I'll bet you it means Kamala has editorial control, so they can edit out anything they don't want broadcast when she gets stupid. And why does she need a man sitting there? Isn't she an independent woman? Why does Tim Walz got to be there for the interview with her? He doesn't know what her policy opinions are. She doesn't know because she doesn't have any. It's just like Joe. She lies to whatever crouches in front of. She's a pandering, pathological liar. She says whatever she needs to say. Just like Joe was a Puerto Rican, a Cuban, a Mexican, a coal miner. You know, all that stuff in Scranton, Pennsylvania. All those diverse communities that Joe grew up in. As a Jew, as a Baptist, as a Catholic. I mean, it really is. It really is hilarious. It's just pandering fraud. And every single thing everything she says now is a lie because she's having to deny all of her previous policy positions. Suddenly, she's not in favor of banning fracking and shutting down petroleum and having everything be green by 2040, but that's what she was saying before. My mandate will have everything green, all electrical vehicles by 2040. But no, not anymore. Now she's not against fracking because she needs Pennsylvania. So she's lying. Oh, and she wants to lower energy prices. You liar! She's closing the plant, shutting down the nuclear reactors. They closed the pipeline. They intentionally increased the price of energy, oil, gasoline, and diesel fuel, which gave us the bad economy because when that cost component doubled, the price of every single product went up because fuel and energy is a cost component of every single product, both its manufacture, production, and dissemination and distribution. And now she's against Bidenomics. She's going to work to save the middle class from all the bad things, as though it was Trump that did them over the last 4 years. She was bragging about how good Bidenomics is. Bragging about it repeatedly. Bidenomics, and that's Bidenomics. Bidenomics are working. But now she's going to save the middle class by lowering taxes. Liar! She's going to let the Trump tax cuts expire, which will raise taxes on everyone. She wants a capital gains tax of 44. She wants to tax unrealized gains. Are they going to give refunds for unrealized losses? What an idiot! We're going to tax theory rather than actual reality now. Why don't you just take 40 cents every time it goes up $1? Oh, because then it would never go up. That's right. You'd create a depression with that policy. So she's not going to lower taxes for the middle class. She's going to raise them. And her policy on health care. Oh, she wanted to eliminate private insurance so that we could have Obamacare for everyone. Just eliminate the private insurers. Oh, no, she didn't want to do that anymore. Now she doesn't want to do that. Liar! And now she says she's not for the EV mandate. She's the one that broke the 50-50 tie in the Senate that gave you the EV mandates. And the green nonsense, flushing money down the toilet. There's no investment. Government doesn't invest. It spends, it wastes, it buys votes, it pads the budget for its crony business partners. They spent $7 billion for 7 EV stations and like $3 billion on 70 electric buses. That's $350,000 a bus. They're $50,000 a piece, for God's sake. That's not an investment. That's flushing money down the toilet. That's wasting money by the trillions, which is why we have inflation. They're flooding the marketplace with currency. And now she says she's not for, she'd be willing to support nuclear. Well, that's never been the Democrat position. They've been shutting down nuclear plants all over the country as fast as they can because that's the quickest way to raise the price of energy, is not replace the nuclear plants, which have been providing, I think, some 40% of the energy of the country for the last 50 years. The plants are going offline. They need to be rebuilt more efficiently and replaced, if not restored. That's the only way to cheap electricity in the future is nuclear. That's the only zero-carbon solution. Fracking gas will help keep costs down, but the only way to keep it cheap is nuclear. Oh, and crime. Now she's the prosecutor. She and Joe unleashed the cartels, unleashed the immigrant invasion on the border, and have allowed the criminals to run free in the countries under the guise and pretense of Black Lives Matter protests and other such nonsense. She actually bailed the criminals out She set up the go-to fund, the GoFundMe, to bail the criminals out. She's not a prosecutor. She's part of the conspiracy to destroy the cities with chaos, anarchy, and divisive class warfare on every excuse they can dream up. Oh, he's black, the cop was white. Racism, white supremacy, lying pieces of just disgusting. And what does she want to do? That's right, price gauging. She's going to stop the companies from price gauging. This is how stupid this woman is. She doesn't know it's price gouging. You don't gauge someone, you gouge them with a high price. Price gauging. She's so stupid she didn't even correct the error. She's going to run the economy, and how is she going to stop the price gauging by the corporations? How's she going to stop the price gauging? Soviet-era economic policy price controls. Government's going to fix the price of bread and milk and butter and rice and wheat. Yeah, right. The people who have no idea how to produce any of that are going to fix the price when they increase the cost of energy necessary to produce, manufacture, and distribute those goods. Check! Check! They're not going to do anything except send us into a depression. If you vote for this woman, you have a real mental problem. A real mental problem. Probably it's Trump derangement syndrome, which appears to be a mental illness that has afflicted half this country. They're now willing to slit their throats and cut their own heads and hands off to avoid having Donald Trump and populist policy back in place. And Trump has told you how he's going to fix the economy. The Democrats don't want to address it, don't want to admit it. He's told you right out of the gate, drill, baby, drill. Bring down the cost of gasoline and diesel fuel, eliminate that high cost component, and prices on all the goods can come down. And that's the only way they're coming down, because that's a controllable cost component. You can't reverse inflation, but you can reverse unnecessary cost components. And if you put gas back down at $2 a gallon, everything could get cheaper. It won't ever go back to where it was, because you can't reverse inflation. But you can reverse the artificial cost increase. Oh, we can't do that. That'll make the companies more profitable. You idiot. It'll make everything more workable. Cheap energy is everything. Everything. It's your economy, it's your profit, it's your productivity, it's your labor force, it's your lights at night, it's your coolness in summer, your heat in the winter. Energy is everything. When energy is cheap, people can flourish and be creative and build. When energy is expensive, you can't even get to work 5 days a week. If there is work 5 days a week. Everything shuts down when energy is expensive. The Democrats know that. That's why on day one they canceled the gas pipeline and put in place an expensive energy policy. That makes life harder and creates a larger group of people in the population who are dependent upon the government for their day-to-day survival. And that's what the government wants, dependence, because dependence breeds control. When people are dependent on the government, when they've misplaced their faith in the government, they get controlled by the government, not to their own benefit, but to the benefit of the government. Vote blue, or you won't get your welfare check. Yeah, right. Vote ready, you're dead. Sounds like we're coming up on the second break here. This is Thomas Fried on the Liberty Works Radio Network. We'll be back in 5. Get yourself a copy of The Simple Truth at irazoom.com. this is Thomas Freed on the Liberty Works Radio Network. This is a Truth Attack Hour, and let's just go ahead and get right back into this. So, gaslighting America, pandering, pathological lying is the theme and modus operandi for the Harris campaign. They're hiding from the media. They're not answering questions. They're not publishing policy. She's having aides denounce all of her historical policies, and she's not saying a word. It's gaslighting to the nth degree. She is not a serious candidate. She's more like a ghost or a laughing hyena than a candidate. Candidates want their positions known. They want to talk to the reporters. They want to talk to the press. They want press conferences where all the media comes and prints what they say. But not her. Not her. She's afraid of policy positions because the Democrats' policies over the last 4 years, which she's been a part of and the progenitor of, the actual tie-breaking vote, have destroyed America and destroyed the quality of life here in America for the middle class, which she claims she's working for as she destroys them by letting the Trump tax cut expire and kicking the tax numbers back up again. No, she's a lying fraud, a pandering, pathological liar, just like Joe, just like the Democrats. They're not working for you. They're working for a global system of rule across the planet. That's why you're at war in Russia, still 3 years later. That's why Iran is being allowed to wreak havoc in the Red Sea through the Houthis, and in Gaza through Hamas and Hezbollah, all being funded by Joe Biden, lying Biden's high energy prices, which have made it possible for both Iran and Russia to make money selling oil, despite the sanctions, which the Biden administration isn't enforcing. So they're both selling oil at high prices, and the profits are funding the war that Joe Biden let start by not standing behind Israel firmly and by not stopping Putin at the border as they were massing troops when he said, oh, he doesn't want to provoke Putin. You idiot! You idiot! If you don't oppose enemy forces massing on your border, if you don't oppose them at the border to stop them from coming into your country, you're inviting them in. You're not provoking them by opposing them. By not opposing them, you're inviting them in. And that's what he did. The idiot! He's been on the wrong side of foreign policy decisions since Vietnam. Every single policy decision. And Harris is too stupid to know what foreign policy is. Is that like the franc or the pound foreign policy? Is that what they call the police in France? And of course it's come out that the Democrats were the source of disinformation. They were the ones that interfered in the election of 2020. Mark Zuckerberg has publicly announced that it was the White House that approached Facebook and Meta, his company, about suppressing and censoring information about COVID and the laptop, which the FBI knew was true. All 51 of those creatures from hell should be prosecuted for sedition and treason. They all lied. And the White House used tech to censor, not just with Facebook, but with Google, and probably all the others. Twitter, Facebook, Google, Instagram, no doubt. The Democrats are the ones that censored the information and gave out disinformation. Like there's no natural immunity to COVID. And then if you take the shot, you won't get it and can't transmit it. And then, of course, they fired people with natural immunity who wouldn't take the shot. The little Nazis. Do as we say or you're out. They purged the military of conservatives. There weren't any religious conservatives in the military believing in God, not government and their vaccines that mess with your DNA. Well, it wasn't supposed to do that, sorry. Yeah, well, it did. They lied about the laptop. They covered up the crimes of the Biden family cartel. Biden's criminal syndicate's been taking extortion and bribing, selling access and peddling influence for 30 years. It's the most corrupt family in Washington, D.C., and the Democrat idiots put him in the office with dementia. Just 2 months ago, he was sharp as a tack and ready to go and able to defend and right there and the most aggressive guy in the room and called the lid on the day at 11 a.m. and went to the beach and put his head in the sand where he fell asleep like the brain-dead zombie he is. And Harris and all the other Democrats sat there and told you Bidenomics are working, they're working, they're working. And it's the Republicans giving you disinformation. The laptop is fake. It's fake. That's not Hunter Biden on cocaine and alcohol with prostitutes and bank records and financial transactions. Zuckerberg's confessed. They censored information at the behest of the White House. But he's not doing it now. I think he senses the wind has changed. Trump is going to blow these assholes out of office, and he's going to get prosecuted if he doesn't hold off this time. So no Zuck bucks this time. No 400 million. And did you hear Obama? The vision for America, hope and joy. The vision, yeah, right. Their vision is a nightmare. High prices, inflation, a weak military, a drained strategic petroleum reserve. EV mandates, expensive diesel, wasteful green energy spending, alien budgeting priorities, cartel crime, immigration border invasion, fentanyl killing 100,000 a year, crime unprosecuted, higher taxes, higher energy. Their vision is a nightmare. And what's the result of all this insanity? Oh, the Navy took 17 ships of the line offline for lack of sufficient personnel due to recruiting issues. Gee, there's a surprise. There's a surprise. The guys in the military aren't excited about joining the new transgender military. Or the people joining are those who want the government to pay for their surgery. They don't really want to fight in a war or carry a weapon or hit anyone. I'll tell you what else is a problem. There's no fuel in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to run all the ships. They've drained it down so low they don't have sufficient fuel to keep the Navy at sea. They're just not telling you that. And how's it going in the cities? The Venezuelan gangs are moving in. Venezuela's opened its prison and telling people to come on down for tourism. It's safe now because they deported all the criminals. Let them all go into Mexico, work their way into the United States. They're taking over parts of Colorado and Denver. They've taken over a whole building. Taken over a whole building. They're running the drugs in the business. They're taking the drug business away from the American gangs. Is that good or bad? It's all bad. The gang should never have been allowed to run things in the first place. Oh, but what's Joe Biden's DOJ doing? That's right, they indicted Donald Trump again. They're still going over Catholic parents. And parents who object to CRT being taught in their school and transgender bathrooms where their daughters get attacked. That's what they're doing. They're attacking their political opposition. He's weaponized the DOJ. There's no prosecution of crime or criminals or cartel gang members or smugglers or sex smugglers. They're prosecuting the conservative Republicans, the Catholics. Why? Because they dissent with the Democrats' socialist politics, altering or trying to alter our entire culture. And this is not over yet, folks. They're doing exactly what you knew they would do, exactly what I told you 3.5 years they would do when they opened the border and started ushering in, and have now ushered in over 10 million people. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, the border czar, have orchestrated an invasion of some 10 to 12 million illegal aliens over the last 4 years, 3.5 years, soon to be 4. And why? Oh, not because they're going to register to vote. No, not because of that. Because they're seeking asylum to escape persecution. No, they're just coming for economic opportunity. And you telling them to vote for Joe Biden on the Mexican side of the border as you prep them to come across and get handed over to ICE to be put on a plane and paid for by the Biden administration to fly to Boston, Chicago, New York, Denver, Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, all the places they're flying them in, which is what they're spending the money on. What are they doing? I'll tell you what they're doing. 10 million attempts have been made by people this year to register to vote without ID. They're trying to keep the Democrats in office so that the money keeps flowing to the illegal alien population. And these 10 million people, if they can get them registered to vote, will swing the election in every state. They're buying Congress with illegal alien foreigners. 10 million people have tried to register to vote without ID. They're signing them right up everywhere they can to steal your country from you and enslave you to the benefit of foreigners. Not America, not Americans. It's literally treason. It's a betrayal to the American people, and it all starts with being so arrogant. These people don't think they ever have to talk to the American people. They don't have to answer questions. Hell, they don't even have to take questions. And when they sit for an interview, it's going to be taped and edited, and you're never going to see anything she says. That's stupid. And that's actually going to be really hard for them to do because she can't go 8 words without getting stupid. Talking about unburdened from what was and what isn't. Are you talking about no guilt for murdering 100 million people as socialists, you idiot? Is that what you're talking about? You're not burdened by the 100 million deaths caused by socialist dictators just since 1910? No, she wants to be unburdened from all of that so that she can sell it to you. Because if you recall, that wasn't really about the Russian people. It was about Lenin and Stalin. It wasn't really about the German people. It was about Adolf Hitler. It wasn't really about the Venezuelan people. It was about, and Maduro now. It wasn't really about the Cuban people. It was about Castro. It's never about the people. It's always about the man in power who wants more power by crushing dissent and fixing the price controls so that everybody can get their one slice of bread every day to survive on. Oh, you needed more than that? Sorry. This is socialism. There is no bread. There's just a line for cheese 2 miles long. It starts over there about around the corner. Good luck with that. Okay, I hear the break coming up. This is Thomas Fried on the Liberty Works Radio Network. Get yourself a copy of The Simple Truth About Income Tax at irszoom.com. It's just $6. It'll set you free. We'll be back in a week with more. Sure, thank you. You too.